Hey guys, my name is Hamid Hassanzadeh. I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Parametric Architecture platform. In this episode, we invited Shajay Bhooshan to come and join us. Shajay Bhooshan is a senior associate at Zaha Hadid Architects and also is the co-founder of ZHCODE. And basically in this interview, he's going to discuss about his story of becoming an architect and his story of joining Zaha Hadid Architects and his experiences with projects and about the architectural geometry that he was lately discussing about. And also we're going to discuss about Pacademy's latest workshop, which is called Designing for Robotic Fabrication, a 4-day online workshop on the 3rd, 4th, 10th, and 11th of October. So basically Shajai will discuss about the insights of the workshop, what are they teach during the workshop, and the essential things that the students need to learn about the workshop. So Shajai and his team, Federico Borello, Leo Bailing, and also Cesar Fragachan will lead this workshop. So if you're interested about joining this workshop, the link is down below in the description. You can find the link in the description to read more and even register. And now I'm inviting Shajai to join to this live session, and there we go.
Hi, Shajai.
Hey, can you hear me?
I hear you.
Hello,
you hear
hello.
me?
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. That's perfect. It's great to see you here. Thanks for joining to this live session and interview. And we're so excited about it. The mic is yours if you want to say hello to our audience.
Yeah. Firstly, thank you for the invitation, and hello to everybody. Particularly if you're joining it late, wherever you are.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So first of all, I'm sure the people who know you really well, or they just know your name, they like to hear your story. And also for the people who don't know you from our audience, can you introduce yourself and tell us about your story of becoming an architect?
Yeah, sure. It's a relatively straightforward path. My father is an architect, and like in India, and like that's where I studied. Although like every other Indian, like I probably wanted to study computer science and emigrate to the US or study further there. But I studied my bachelor's degree in India, and then took a wild shot in the dark and did my master's at the AADRL.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am working for Zaha Hadid Architects.
That's awesome. So how did it work for you to start working as Zaha Hadid Architects, one of the pioneering architecture firms in the world?
Yeah, that was. I guess I was in the right place at the right time. I did my master's degree at the AADRL, and a lot of my colleagues and fellow students, they started working at Zaha Hadid Architects, whilst I went to Populous. And as it turns out, that a lot of my friends, including Daniel and Melike, recommended me to Patrick and Niels, who's now a director at ZHA, and then I met Patrick in a kind of one of the parties, and they were looking to start a research group, and they took a risk with me, and mostly because my friends and colleagues recommended me, I guess. So yeah, and I grabbed grabbed the opportunity with both my hands and feet.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so, Patrick was on sabbatical then, from the AA, just that particular year.
Yeah. And all these happened around 2006 or 2005?
Yeah, end of 2006, early 2007.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, awesome. How has your interest emerged for parametric and computational design?
Yeah, and I think like many of your audience, my interest is probably driven by like very many factors, and because I don't have any background in it. Like when I studied in India, it was more modernist architecture, and there wasn't like much to go by in terms of digital or computational or parametric. But when I did my master's at the AA, like things really opened up, like the possibility of a technologically motivated and a technologically informed architecture was exciting. Not only because like I had a prior interest in computer science and also interest in mathematics and geometry and so on. But the fact that like you could use this and merge it in a kind of with other concerns of architecture, to me was very exciting, and that you can use technology in a to augment other concerns of architecture was really the exciting part.
Yeah, awesome. Can you talk about the architectural geometry and also the effect of fabrication techniques in defining and redefining these architectural geometries? Because you've been talked about architectural geometry in AA a lot, and I'd like to have your point on this.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, maybe if I can take some time and kind of articulate what we mean, what is the general discussion around architectural geometry. It's mostly geometry that is unlike, mathematical geometry. It's not abstract and pure. It's something that is related to the flow of forces, that is informed by like structural qualities or structural properties, and at the same time geometry that is informed by like how to make it, so let's say it's shape that is structurally and constructionally informed. So it's not arbitrary shapes, but shapes that have, let's say, meaning in that sense. And so it's also not particularly related to computational alone. It has a pre-computer history, like people like all historic architecture, like in masonry and timber structures and iron bridges and so on, like they exhibit these qualities that it's design that highlights and brings to the foreground like the structural and constructional aspects. So the aesthetics are coming from the performance of the structure, let's say, or performance of the architecture. So that's what is now like in the modern day sense. People like Helmut Pottmann and Philippe Bloch and ICD and so on, like they're contributing a lot of scientific research to make available a lot of tools and thinking, geometry-based ways to think about shape and reason about shape. And so that's what we kind of mean by architectural geometry. And so it's basically so we want to make use of these both historic and computationally upgraded set of tools and thinking in the service of new architecture, and like how we can provide novel user experiences and novel kind of user interface, meaning like how people navigate through buildings, how they can easily understand where to find what, so it opens up like a wider repertoire, wider set of tools and formal possibilities for you to be able to design your spaces, right? And
yes,
yeah.
Do you think new kind of like in our previous century by architects like Antonio Gaudi and engineer Frei Otto, are those guys have just defined new kind of architectural geometry to the architecture world as well? What do you think about them?
Yeah, that's what's like very interesting about structurally informed or constructionally informed shapes or so-called architectural geometry is that it is not like something that just popped up. It has a historic continuation. It continues not only immediate past like Prioto, but also like people like Mark Berry, like who's kind of investigating what Gaudi was using and kind of computationally re-understanding it and extending it further. And also even in 17th, 18th, 19th century, European architecture, or even further before that, like, Arabic architecture or, Indian and Chinese architecture. They're all kind of based on rules and evolved in relation to material cultures, like how to build some of these things. To be able to build them properly and that they stand up, like obviously they have to follow a logic and a rationality. So yeah, they've definitely contributed to this, and now it's an exciting phase that like new technologies from computer graphics are able to pick up that thread and like kind of bring it to the 21st century.
Yes. If those guys had these tools, I can't imagine what can they create. What could they create? Yeah, awesome. Most of the ZHA's buildings consist of like curvatures and curves, and mostly ZHA is judged by the statements that because they are creating these curvatures because the software gives the options, lets them to do it. Can you tell us why curvature is better and what is the attraction about curvature?
Well, I mean, yeah, so that's a very good question in terms of like, why we've been attracted to the use of curvilinear shapes and organizations, fluid organization of space and experiences. So it's not like one experience contained in one box and another experience contained in another box. So you don't go from box to box.
Yes.
It ties in well with like the previous topic of architectural shape and architectural geometry, in the sense, curvature is known to be beneficial structurally already, right? Like that, people like Philippe and also historic masonry structures and so on have already shown that appropriate use of curvature, makes it possible to use weaker materials, which means like you are able to save on the energy. So like structurally informed shapes are usually or almost always like curved, because like then they transmit forces better, and therefore you use less material. Like the typical example would be the eggshell idea, that very little material because of the shape allows you to transmit a lot of you gain strength through shape and less through material properties. And so structurally it's beneficial, and as a designer, obviously it is so much more.
Right. Shajay, do you hear me? Shajay, do you hear me?
A kind of experience and a kind of lighting and a kind of acoustics, and slightly further away you have another kind of lighting and another kind of acoustics, and so you're able to play with more. So the so-called degrees of freedom is better with curvature.
Yeah.
And so you can also then blend between one experience and another, one space and another. So spatially it is better, and obviously constructionally it is like like there's historic continuity. Like there's whether it's the domes of almost every culture knows how to make a dome, and so there is that. And there's a lot of historic built wisdom around environmentally. It's in terms of acoustics or in terms of cooling and heating loads, like it's probably curved things are most likely always better. And so, there are all of these aspects to why curved shapes are better. And like only.
And also it costs more, right? Like building
so that's
wall is morely cost without. Yeah, that's a great one of the comments as well, to build curvatures. If
only in the modernist sense, because like the modernist production system is catered to like these kind of boxy things, but not really. If you think about like, the other day I saw somebody post on Twitter or LinkedIn, like these famous walls in the UK, they're called crinkle crankle walls. Because of those curved shapes, like you can save, they can be very one brick thick. If you had to make the same wall, like with a straight line, like you would have to make it double.
Yes.
You would have to make it with 2 layers of bricks, and so you're automatically saving
resources, materials, right?
Exactly. And so, but your point is valid and is important that like in the modernist sense, it is difficult to make curved shapes, but like that's exactly where digital fabrication and robotic manufacturing and all of these come to play. Like, places like ICD or ETH, they're like, bringing 3D printing and bringing like fabric formed or textile fabrication methods where like it's harder to make a straight thing than like curvature is naturally part of this world. Like, and so, yes, in the modernist sense, it is difficult to make, or more, not difficult, it's more expensive to make curved shapes, but like that is rapidly changing. That's
true. Yeah, definitely. We have the technology today, and we can easily build whatever we desire. So if it's efficient to build a curved wall, why not to do it? Let's just do it, and it's great. We have the technology. So which one of the projects that you have worked at ZHA till now require the most advanced computation and parametric tools to design and also to build?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a good question in the sense that, I mean, I would probably say break it into, I will reframe the question slightly to say like which project now pushes the technology to the background so that we can focus on other aspects of architecture. Like, so which means, early on, like, when we started the group, because we had like no prior background in any of this. So, when we did, let's say the Arum Pavilion for Venice Biennale in 2012, like, we had to focus heavily on like, folding of the metal using a robot, like understanding the structurally how it behaves and all of these things. So we couldn't actually focus on much else, like other than like getting it made and getting it made well, and so on. Through those kind of pavilions, like which we have done very many of, like at least 20 plus, like, and the latest one being Knit Candela, like, like already we see in a matter of 6-8 years, like we are able to collaborate with across continents, like, in 2.5 months, things were conceived, designed, and engineered.
And inside a plane, right?
Yeah, exactly right. And across, between architecture extrapolated in Mexico City, Block Research Group in Zurich, and Zaha Hadid Architects in London, like so much is possible now because like technologically each of the contributors, each of the stakeholders are like getting so much more sophisticated and more comfortable. And that can be seen now also in like many of the projects that like the architects themselves are doing. Like 4 years for the world's largest airport is an incredible feat. I mean, even though I wasn't particularly directly involved in it, but like my colleagues, my peers, like we see this day in and day out. It's very inspirational. Just to say that, like, all of these technologies are maturing so rapidly that it's exciting. Like few years ago, like that airport was a sketch in somebody's computer.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that airport, Daxing Airport is really one of the projects, a masterpiece by ZHA, which pushes the boundaries of architecture and technology as well. So you also run a studio at Architectural Association Design Research Lab. Can you talk a little bit about the studio and what are you doing and what are you teaching to the students at this studio? Because this question is also, this topic is also related to our upcoming workshops as well. So what are you teaching to students at AADRL in your studio?
Yeah, and you know, like with, I mean, AADRL has a 20 plus years of existence and history. So the studio like kind of joins that movement. And I started teaching in the studio maybe around 2012, 2013 now. And you know, Patrick co-founded the group, and Theo has been running this as a director for at least 12 years now. So the studio joins this general spirit of inquiry, a collaborative, multidisciplinary, exploratory, experimental kind of design research. And design research is the forefront, like it is different from scientific research in materials or structure and so on. But design research, which means design is foregrounded, that we then genuinely believe that answer to many questions can be found in a design research methodology.
Yes.
Things learning by doing and also by doing several design research studies and experiments and so on. So our studio, particularly like that I've been now running with my partner for the last 5 years, it focuses on initially started with digital fabrication and robotic fabrication and exploring like how we can develop an aesthetic around that, right? Like how you can create shapes and geometries and so-called tectonic, you know,
yes,
like how you can generate a new tectonics out of these concerns, structural concerns, out of fabrication concerns, and so on. So, but like as these technologies are maturing, not only in the industry, but not only in research in places like you know, ETH and ICD and so on, but also like the ability of designers to handle these technologies, that's what we focus on in the DRL. Like whilst these are maturing, how do you make architectural context for it? How do you apply it in a design sense? So that's what we are focusing on as a studio for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
One topic is how you apply this to the imminent need of housing, but also specifically how do you bring on participation from the end users? You know, can we use digital fabrication in conjunction with gaming technologies or in conjunction with like Facebook and community building technologies? That's so-called participatory housing for the last, and now this year we are now extending that because to participatory cities, small townships. And the reason we feel confident of doing that is because like the last 5 years of work is now manifested in a kind of commercial realization, exciting actually in Honduras, where we are being able to bring these participatory housing ideas to an island where there is so we have to use local materials but import machines and so on. So now we feel confident enough that like, you know, we can expand on the scale from housing to generally small scale cities.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, brilliant. So talking about our upcoming workshop, Designing for Robotic Fabrication by Academy in collaboration with AADRL, can you tell us or tell our audience and to the people who are interested to join to this workshop what are the features of this workshop, and what are they going to learn, and what are the essentials of this learning about robotic fabrication?
Yeah, so I mean, this is as a workshop, like it's mostly, I mean, all the tutors, including myself, are like ex-DRL graduates, and both recent and like a bit more 4 years ago, kind of. So Federico and Cesar and Leo. So the idea is to give a kind of little window into the world that we find super, super exciting. Like it's like amazingly motivating for us, like not only, the rapid maturation of like robotic fabrication and the kind of not only tectonic possibilities, but also entrepreneurial possibilities that these technologies give to young people, particularly young companies, right? Like, and so, and so that's it's a window into that world of robotic fabrication and how that can be captured geometrically, so like, because to be able to work with these technologies, you have to convert it into visual information, into geometric information. Exactly. So that's our expertise, right? Like one of the core expertise of architects and designers is to manipulate shape. So we want to convert all information into visual geometric information. Otherwise, so we are not trained in mathematics or, manipulation of abstract symbols. What we are trained in is working with shapes and spatial organizations and these kind of things. So that's one of the things that the workshop will give a window into, is how do you capture manufacturing, or how do you capture robotic processes geometrically, and also how do you design shapes specifically that can be manufactured given a manufacturing method. So in this case, we are just choosing hot wire cutting because it's easy to get into, because all you need is a hot wire and some foam and a robot. So it's a kind of very gentle introduction, but to this entire world that is super exciting, as I said. And also, like several years ago, I mean, maybe less than 4 or 5 years ago, like this would have been like a full year's worth of work to be able to design and then inform a robot and like get it to cut and so on. Like, so it's also a window into how rapidly things are maturing. And so now you'll be able to control like a robot, like from, thousands of miles away. Yeah. And so that's also just a little window again to this idea that to dismiss the myth that architecture is not technologically engaged. I mean, in fact, last decade or so is excitingly accelerated. I mean, there's so many startups now in the AEC world. Several new, young, exciting architectural companies, including established companies like Zaha Hadid Architects. So, so it's a window into that entire world, plus also potential scientific extensions and people like Odico who have built like an entire business around this. Hot wire cutting, now they're selling robots that do this and other things. So it's a window into entrepreneurial opportunities. It's a window into historic stone cutting methods, which was previously similar techniques were used to cut stone and also make geometries made of stone. Using straight line cutting, like people like Gaudi used a lot of these techniques, and so it's a window into history. It's a window into entrepreneurship. It's a window into new ways of creating shape,
Awesome. So there will be also lectures and tutorials of like using these kind of tools and what are the methodologies and the ideologies of using these tools. So it's a brilliant workshop. I think anyone who is interested to join to this workshop, just go to our profile and the link is in our profile. You can participate, and we just a few seats left to to fill up the class. So if you're interested, don't just waste your time and just go into the profile and click on the link in our bio, and you can see every detail about the Designing for Robotic Fabrication Workshop Web Academy in collaboration with AADRL. So going forward and asking a couple of questions from our participants and our audience, they were asking like, do the participants need to have any knowledge or pre-knowledge about Rhino or Grasshopper softwares to completely absorb the workshop, or will be there any like introduction about how to use these software?
Yeah, I mean, it would be beneficial to have some general awareness and like some so you can navigate through Rhino. I mean, I guess everybody knows how to use Rhino.
Yeah.
So yeah, general awareness is useful. Like, and I mean, more even if it is not Rhino, like generally navigating in a 3D environment is very useful. So I mean, it doesn't need to be Rhino, but like it can be Maya, Blender, whatever. But like the idea that you're natively comfortable in a 3D environment is useful, but not necessarily a prerequisite, let's say. But I mean, as I said, it's a window into a world. Like it's not like it's not like a tutorial where you will learn how to make a specific shape and like go and apply it tomorrow but it is a window into the world, and it's also trying to situate and give contextual awareness as to it's not something that was born yesterday, and it's like the history goes like several hundred years ago, and so it's to just have a broad idea, understanding contextually that it is truly multidisciplinary, and it is also historically continuous. And of course, you will learn like some specific skills, like particularly how robots work. That there is nothing to be. It is basically like any other 3D printer. There is no like magic to it. And then also like things like ruled surfaces and like how can you design with that constraint that everything has to be ruled or straight line based, but how can you get curvature out of straight lines? That itself is like quite a fascinating topic. Which is again occupied like very many people like for hundreds of years, and so so it's more exploratory, it's more broad scope and less about like how to render something in Keyshot, and that's for that like there's very many tutorials like and you wouldn't need somebody like to teach you that, like you can just go through. So it basically will unpack and like situate like maybe 10-15 years worth of progress in the discipline in a short amount of time.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, a lot of, as you said, a lot of students or a lot of architects are just afraid of the when they see a robot, how they're gonna work with a robot or how they're gonna program it. Yeah, it's hard to learn, but it is learnable if anybody on the planet Earth is doing it. So it's really worth learning and doing it, and it's just doable and it's learnable. So this workshop will give the opportunity how to work with robotic fabrications and how to design constraints according to robotic fabrication. Awesome.
Yeah.
So we have another question from one of our participants and one of our audience who would like to ask, does the workshop content focus on producing pre-designed models, or will the participants experiment on their own versions of the design?
No, definitely not pre-designed. There will be some examples that we can show, but like the main intention is to explore And
Yes.
so it's an open-ended thing, so there's some pre-configured, let's say, exercises, but like there's nothing to say that you cannot. I mean, it's actively encouraged, even like, that this is not like something that like, it's not a one-trick pony, but it's more, again, opening in, like just to improve awareness, because it's a technique, a geometry, a rule surface, which is affiliated with hot wire cutting. But you could extend this principle to anything else. Like if you have 3D printing, you would think of similar things. Like if you were laying bricks, you would think of it similarly. What kinds of geometries are possible by laying bricks, as opposed to cutting of foam? Like, so there is a specificity of the range of geometries possible, the so-called design space associated with the fabrication technique, and that's what we want to highlight, like, with this. And so, it's definitely not going to be predefined, like, how to model a duck type of thing. It's more
exploring, right?
Yeah, exactly. And of course, like along the way, you will be exposed to a range of concepts, and both the history of certain things, and how to navigate, or how to even think about how to manipulate shape. And yes.
Yeah, awesome. So just going around the topic of robotic fabrication, what kind of future, because these technologies are quite brand new topics in architecture. What kind of future do you see for the future of architecture with the combination of computation design tools and robotic fabrication techniques like hot wire cutting, like CNC milling, 3D printing, and etc.?
Yeah, well, I mean, it is new. I mean, in the history of architecture sense, it is new. But like, I mean, in a person's lifetime sense, it's not that new. Like, 3D printing, concrete 3D printing, large scale 3D printing started already in 1995 or something, and desktop printing even in 1980, and metal printing, I don't know, 1978 or something like this. And what's exciting now is that a lot of these ideas are, rapidly maturing. Because technology is becoming available and widely available, and also a large number of intelligent, clever people are coming into the discipline,
yes.
Right? Like, it is truly multidisciplinary, right? In SIGGRAPH, for example, which is one of the best or flagship graphics conferences, they have now a track called digital fabrication, right? Like, and so there is that overlap. Lots of people, clever people, are coming into this, in touch with architectural problems and opportunities. And so, so it is new, but not that new. And it's also exciting because lots of things are democratically available. Like, one of the people that like always amazed me, and like I have a high respect for, is Philip Yuan. Like, in China, like in maybe 10 years or so, like he's built up not only a design practice but also an entire fabrication company. So they're designing and building their buildings, like, which is quite an amazing thing to imagine. And so it's not restricted to like only Europe or only the US. Like, I mean, there are places in Latin America. Kinetica was like a company that is based in Mexico, but they did projects for us in New York. And so it's like widely available, like whether you're in Asia or, like I recently was in Thailand, for example, and like there are people interested. We have robots, like what can we do with this? And also in India, and, some of our students are trying to do stuff. So the future is very bright, like entrepreneurially and across cultures, across building economies. And so in that sense, I think it is like ready to topple modernism, it is following in the same footsteps, like modernist buildings were buildable across the world, but it took some time, like from 1930s to, like, by the time the 1970s came around, maybe every country from Brazil to India knew how to make a concrete, modernist villa. But that is happening now with these new technologies being available. So, like, places like in India and China and Latin America are producing people and architectural examples, which is quite exciting, because it's kind of following in the modernist footsteps, but finally we're beginning to see some real progress.
Yeah, exactly. Once again, I'm just telling our audience that if you're interested to join or read more about designing for robotic fabrication workshop, just go to our profile. The link is in our profile. Click on the link in our bio, and you have the full description and you have the full information about the robotic fabrication workshop. So going further and asking my question about generally in architecture, who were your biggest influences in architecture? Other than Zaha, definitely.
Yeah, it's strange with I mean, as they say, every person is probably a kind of average of the five most closest people that they hang out with, and so that's perhaps most true for me, definitely, throughout, like, when I was studying in India, or my peers were like my greatest influences. Some of my closest friends, they came with, I mean, despite being at that time it was a closed economy, and so there wasn't much external influence that was coming in. Yeah. But at the same time, these friends were, they used to either be playing music or like be into making comics and so on, like like to be the world's best in a way, that was aspirational, that influential. And it's the same, like, in terms of architectural mentors, I would say, I would have to say, and also with gratitude, acknowledge people like Patrick and Theo and Philippe, because these are not only my employers, but also I know them intellectually and personally, and so that's definitely a great influence. Theo being like the director of the DRL, as I said, for many years now, and Patrick, being principal now at Zaha since her passing, and also shaping Zaha Hadid Architects for the last 30 years. And Philippe, obviously, he started as an assistant professor, but now, has a remit and influence far greater. And so, and both I feel fortunate and also gratitude to know all of these people personally. And of course, in terms of, my own partner, who is now not only entrepreneurial, she's assistant professor at Calgary, but has been running the studio with us, with me for the many years. And we do many of our adventures together, including building Nit Candela in Mexico, or shells in Mexico, or draining half our savings in buying a robot, in all of these things, and also my own peers in code, people like David Reeves, who's now working for a computer graphics industry, and my brother Vishu and Henry. Yeah. And yeah, so it's a bunch of influence. I feel gratitude in that sense as well, that people like Melike or Daniel and Chikara, who's now made a bunch of glass prints for Neri Oxman and so on. I just feel that like, you know, I was in the midst of like this entire community of people that therefore I genuinely feel that influences from my peers and colleagues are far greater than more historic figures. But in terms of historic figures, I would definitely say the Eames couple, because that's what like Alicia and myself aspire to, like to have a career spanning, I don't know, 70, 80 years. And like even just being entrepreneurial and purchasing patents from the U.S. Army and building a brand and a career spanning design and architecture and education, and you know, and having an impact like in places as far reaching as in India. Like the National Institute of Design in India still follows a large part of the curriculum set by the Eames, and you know, so that's
inspiring.
So,
yeah. Thank you. So just 10 minutes to go to finish the interview. What do you think about our platform, PA?
Yeah, no, I mean, I've known you for I think at least 4 years now, and
from 2016.
Yeah, and I feel, I mean, I think like, yeah, you have definitely and slowly built up. What I like about it is that like that you do take it's an endeavor of passion, and like you take care, and like you invite the people, like, and you try to look into their histories or what their interests are, and you know, like, and these interviews things are like, I think like a new addition, which is great. Like, you know, the first I came to know about it is when you interviewed Patrick. I don't know if he was your first but yeah, since
it was his first.
His first.
Yes.
Yeah, and yeah, no, I think like I mean it's a great platform like that, and it's also the fact that it's providing access across the world. Like I think that is a great contribution, and it's you know, opening up the conversation. I mean, oftentimes on the internet it's difficult to know, like, you know, what is behind the image, you know. It's and like to bring out those stories and bring out those interests, I think is a good thing that you're doing. And like, I mean, we would actively support all such efforts to you know, to have the you know, bring back the long form, like, you know, the long form conversation. I mean, I would also encourage for you to combine this into publications, you know, because publications live longer, and that those are cultural outputs that like live through history, as opposed to living. Because one thing great about the internet is that like it brings a large number of people across the world together. Something that's not so great is that it shortens the memories to a few days.
Exactly.
So like, how to bring the long form back in, like, because it's also equally important cultural artifact.
Good advice.
Publication. Yeah.
I'll take care of that.
It's a great platform, and I hope to see like other diversification or consolidation, let's say, in this trajectory. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. All we are trying to do is just provide information and show the back side of every project that is being published, interviewing with architects, designers, computational designers like yourself. So we're just pushing it forward. Thank you.
That's good, yeah.
Just 7 minutes to go. As closer, what kind of advice would you like to share with young professionals and students?
Yeah, I mean, as they say, architects have like a very long career, like at least. Yeah. I'm only 15 years in, and like I hope to be around for another 25. So I guess like I'm a young professional.
Yeah.
So my my advice, or let's say at least sharing of my experience, would be not to make any great plans or try to plan your career, but always be around, try to be around people who are in it for the long game, the long duration, like, people who see that they want to build a career around a passion, around a topic of interest, and then explore various aspects of it, right? Like, so not just internet famous, I mean, which is useful, like, I mean, definitely, like, but to capitalize on that, new mediums and new audiences, and kind of build a career, have something to say about everything, and to say it with conviction. You obviously have to learn and put in effort, like learn things by doing, and so, like, not to be anxious, I guess, like, in the short run. Like, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're not famous in in the first year, or even in the first decade,
yeah.
But, like, early on, like, hang around with the right people, whether it's people who have a longevity in the profession, people like Patrick, or also your own peers, right? Like, try to identify and hang out with people, like, who are entrepreneurial, who are innovative, and no matter where you are, and I mean, in this sense, like, I was fortunate to meet people like Asbjorn and Yele, and people like Mustafa and Suryans, who were from DRL, like, who went on to start their own company, very successful robot making startup, and Yele and Asbjorn made like another robot making startup, which is also successful. And so entrepreneurialness comes from building your social capital across very many kinds of people, not only startup sense, but also philosophers or people interested in technology or mathematics or art. To have a wide, build your creative capital in your early days, because you need that broad base to sustain a career for 40 years. That's what I'm trying to follow. I don't know if it's going to work out, but I genuinely am convinced that you should start slow and build a broad base before accelerating. Yeah.
Awesome. I believe in you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining to this live session. Once again, if anybody is interested to join our workshop, Designing for Robotic Fabrication, a workshop by Pacademy in collaboration with AADRL, the link is in our bio. Just go there and click on the link. The information is over there. If you're interested, you can join. Just a couple of seats left for the workshop. It's on 3rd and 4th of October. We will start soon. So thanks, Shajay, for joining, and appreciate for your time. And we will see you during the workshop. Thank you.
Likewise. Thanks a lot for the invitation, and I look forward to more conversations.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Ciao.
Ciao.
Guys, thank you so much for watching this interview. I hope you enjoyed it. First of all, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the link down below to get notified whenever we upload any new videos. Second, Designing for Robotic Fabrication Workshop, a 4-day online workshop by Pacademy in collaboration with Architectural Association Design Research Lab, known as AADRL. Shajay Bhooshan and his team will lead this workshop. So if you're interested to read more information or even register, the link is down below in the description, so you can check it out. So till another day, another interview, stay safe and stay healthy. Goodbye.